My wife makes a wonderful green curry. That's interesting though. The other day, her mum bought a green curry for us to eat. Same ingredients, but two different meals. Quite incredible. I've been thinking a lot recently about the information that we learn and how we need to really adapt it to our own lives to make it as useful as we possibly can. Just the same way that you can adapt a recipe using the same ingredients, but to get quite a different flavour. In this information age, it's so easy to readily consume information. We can learn about anything we want to, but to be able to make that information practical and useful to us in our lives, we have to process it somewhat differently than maybe somebody else would. So we can consume this information. Quite often these days it's online, but then we've got to consider it. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to apply it? And then we've got to experiment a little bit with it. And as we've experimented, we've seen the results, then we've got to really analyze them and evaluate the quality of those results and then adapt them to our lives to make the information as useful as possible. I grew up in an education system that often told us that there was one right way, one correct way of doing things, but through life I've discovered that this is not often actually the case. Maybe if you're building a bridge or a skyscraper, you've got to follow the rule book, you've got to follow the instructions so that it doesn't collapse, because that's a disaster. But if, in particular, if you're doing something creative, then there's not necessarily one right way of doing it. Quite often, there's not one right way of doing it. It's quite the opposite. We've all got quite a unique worldview. We've got different tastes. And for example, you might like to learn how to make a green curry, a good Thai green curry. You could, if you're visiting Chiang Mai, go to a cooking class, or you could find a YouTube video about it, or do like I did, find a recipe online. But then as you make that green curry, then you've got to really consider how much of each ingredient that you're putting in to get the result that you want. And once you've tasted it, once you've eaten it, you've got to evaluate it. Mix the ingredients together. Yeah, you've got to experiment a little bit with it and consider whether you maybe like some ingredients or want to leave them out. In my recipe that I found online, it includes capsicum. My wife makes a wonderful green curry, but it never includes capsicum because she doesn't like capsicum, so it's just not there. It's not right or wrong, it's just the way she makes it. And once you've made your curry, then you've got to evaluate it. You taste test it. How about this? How about that? Did I add too much or too little of one or more of the ingredients? And then make it again, but adapt it. Don't do it the same way as before. So the information that you've learned, you've put it into practice, change it to suit your taste. Maybe you want to add a little bit more coconut cream to disperse that strong chili flavor if you don't like it too hot. Maybe you'd like to add some capsicum to it. It's got to adapt to your own tastes. And so you can't learn to do something really well if you only do it once, or if you do it over and over the same way each time and get the same result. How do you know it's the best result? How do you know it's the one that you like the most? When you learn information by putting it into practice, you gain experience by taking those steps and tweaking it and adapting it and maybe changing it to suit your needs. So when I'm teaching photography, for example, I'll often get people to switch their camera from auto mode, which most people have their cameras on auto when they come to do a workshop, switch it over to manual mode and then photograph the same subject in different lighting conditions with different camera settings, maybe a different lens and a different composition. And this way you'll discover that maybe you like one of the photos more than the other. I often encourage people too that a good subject doesn't make a good photograph, nor does a good camera. A good photographer makes a good photograph. Or the other thing we've been doing here is trying to grow some what we call our farang herbs, the foreign herbs. Not always easy to grow in this tropical climate in northern Thailand, but we're determined to try and grow some rosemary. So far, we haven't had much success, but we've got some pots at the moment that are doing really well. We've just adapted, changed the location, changed the soil, changed the circumstances. Now, I think we've got it. They're going to survive and produce some really nice herbs for us. So you've got to go beyond just the information that you read online or that you glean from a video and adapt it to the way you want to do things, the way you enjoy living your life. So hopefully you found this video encouraging. If you have and you want to see more, please check out this video next. Thanks very much for watching.